Welcome to this tutorial. So in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to implement an authentication system with Next.js project without using the Next.auth package or using Redux. So this is for those who have a custom backend and they want to implement a custom authentication. So this is the starter kit, the starter project, which is in my GitHub repositories. I'll put a link to this in the description of this video. So after you clone it, you want to install the node modules. I've already done that by running yarn, but I've already done that. I'm not going to be doing that in this video because they are already installed. And then inside your app folder you see a auth folder where we have the login directory, the login page. We also have the dashboard page where we have the dashboard folder. So this just contains the dashboard page, dashboard/home, the home page nested inside the dashboard route. And then we have a home, a landing page here. So I'm using Next 13. So for those of you wondering, that's why I'm using this. I'm also using the app directory. So let me walk you through the packages we'll be using. These are the packages that have been installed. This was installed for team switching, but we won't be doing that in this video. You can choose to, well, you can remove it because I'm using styled component in this starter kit. I've already installed it and set it up. So I'm using this to for team switching, but we won't be going through that in this tutorial. So we have the styled component, like I said. This React Toastify is for notification, for this suite notification. Then we also have the JWT decode to decode our JWT, and also JS cookie to save our access and refresh token in the cookie. And then we also have Axios. So I'm going to start the project now. Yarn by running yarn dev. So after running that, I would like to open going to localhost 3000. We have our project there. So let's wait for it to load. So this is the landing page. You have the dashboard page. If you click here, to take you to the dashboard. You can see dashboard/home, dashboard. And if you click the login, it will take you to the login. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement a login system and the authentication system. So the dashboard route will be a protected route, so I won't be able to access this unless I'm logged in. Let's make sure that I'm already logged out by sorry about that. Let's check the cookie to ensure that I'm already logged out. There is no token. So you can see we'll be using the cookie instead of the local storage because the cookie is more secure. It has this same site security that local storage doesn't have, and is also accessible on the server. And you know Next.js is server first before client. So we're going to, in our app directory, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our lib folder, and this is where we're going to house our services folder. We're going to have a services folder. So inside here, we're going to implement our base query. So I'm going to, that will be a api.js. So here I'm just going to copy the code and explain to us what the code is doing. So in this API, we are setting up our Redux based query. Sorry, I mean Axios. So in here we have the Axios imported, and then in here we have a flag to check if you are in development mode or server mode. I've forgotten to tell you that also here I have an env file where I have the route to my backend. Here is the for development, so you can swap this with your with the link to your backend. You have for dev, we have for prod, and then this environment states the environment if you're on production or you're on development. So I'm currently on development, that's why this is in development. So you need to also add your own accordingly. So this checks if we are in development. If we are in development through the process env, if it is not equals to production, which is not, dev becomes true. So to get our server routes, we check if dev is true. If dev is true, we return the backend URL. Else we return the production URL, the backend production URL, and then we'll create an instance of Axios, and we set the base URL to be this server route here, and we'll create the headers application JSON. Then our interceptors, request interceptors, we set the headers to the token, and using the token service dot get local access token. So I haven't created this token service. I'm going to create that now. But before I do that, let me just walk us through this code. So we add so once we get our token from this service, we add it to the headers. So depending on your backend, some backend uses X access token, while some use the authorization header, and some uses both of them also. So you can change this to whichever your backend uses. So after doing that, this is just error handling here, and then we also intercept. This is for in case the token expires and we are getting a 401 error. So this ends up calling our refresh route to refresh to get another access token. So for me it is user/session. So once it calls this session, it checks the refresh token which we are passing here, and uses the refresh token to generate another access token, which is now sent to this token service to update it in our cookie. So the next thing we want to do is create this token service. So you want to click on this and create token dot service dot js and paste. Let me so I'm just going to explain what this code does. So this here gets the local refresh token from the cookie. We are using this JS cookie to fetch it from the cookie, and this is where we set the cookie, update local access cookie. So we'll pass in the token here. So from the token we decode the token, and then the access and refresh token, and get the expiry date, and use that to set the date here. And so we'll pass it into the cookie option, so that when it expires, it automatically deletes from our system, from our browser. So we set the option here HTTP only, to false, expires in to be the access token expiry here, paths with the slash, same site, strict, secure. This secure tells it whether the cookie is secure or not, which means if it is secure, it can only be accessed in a secure site, which is HTTPS. If it is not secure, it can be accessed through HTTP. So if you're on production, secure becomes true, but if you're on development, it becomes false, so that we can have access to it and see it on our browser. So this is where we eventually set the cookie.set access token, token.access token, and then access token cookie option, which is what we set here. And also for the refresh token, also we set it here. So the rest of the code are just explanatory. Get local access token, get local refresh token, get user. So what this does is just returns the access token to get the user. So these are commented out code. This is to get the expiry date, but we don't need that since the cookie automatically deletes itself once it expires. So but if you just need this code, maybe you want to be able to check, you can comment it out. And then we have this remove user to invalidate the user or the tokens. So it removes the access and the refresh token from our browser, and then we export the token service here. So that's just basically what this token service does. So now that is ready, the next thing we want to do is create our authentication service, which will house our login, logout, create user. So you call it auth.service.js, and then inside there we'll declare our function for logging in, function for logging out, for registering. So you can see here, this is the register function. We are importing the API that we declared here and using it to create a post request. You pass in the route to your backend to create a user and pass in the parameters, which are what I passed here. And then the login, also you pass in the email or the password or the username depending on what your backend is using. Create a post request to the URL of the login route, pass in the parameter. And what this does is, once the response comes in, if the response contains an access token, we update the token by passing in the token. So response from .data is the old token, both the access and the refresh token. So you can see this here. Is what we did here, that we set the token inside our cookie, and then we return the cookie again to the user. So this logout function removes the user, which deletes that from the cookie, from the browser cookie. And get current user, what it does is fetches the access token and decodes it and returns the user, which is the decoded access token. And we export our functions also here. So we'll be using this in a minute. So once you have this set, the next thing that we want to do is we want to create our protected route, So I'm just going to and create a require authentication wrapper. So this is a require, I'll call it require auth.js. So this will be a wrapper that will wrap around the private routes that we have. So what I'm going to do here is create a RFCE, a component, a React functional component, and then I'm going to create a private routes array, an array that holds our private routes. You can call it anything, but I'll call it authenticated. Authenticated routes, which will be an array, and it's going to contain our authenticated route. In this case, it's dashboard/home. So after we've done that, what we want to do next is want to get the current user is equals to, so we get that from token service dot get user. Let me see. Okay, and then I'm going to create a state variable which is we hold the user set user. The reason I'm doing this is because of next JS, so that it won't keep throwing some errors about iteration. Sorry, that should be use state. So after doing that, I'm gonna import the path name. Path name will be from use router, but this use router is going to be from next navigation, not router, next navigation. And I'm also going to, sorry, this should be use path name. I'm gonna remove this, and then I also need a router. So this is going to be use router. Oh, sorry, that's also from navigation. And instead of calling it route, I'm just going to destructure the push from it. and then we're going to use a use effect here. Use effect. And I'm going to, okay, let me just, say if, current user and authenticated route dot includes, if it includes the path name, so what am I going to do? Then I'm going to push it back to the login page. And then I'm also going to do if current user, and I'm going to set user to be current user here. So what I'm basically doing here is checking if the user exists. If the user exists and the current page you are trying to access is a private route. Okay, sorry, this should be if user doesn't exist and the page you are trying to access is a private route, is going to push you back to the login page. Now, but there's a problem with this. You're going to see that once I implement this, because you are going to, so if we use this implementation here, it's still going to briefly flash the dashboard page, but we don't want that. So we're still going to do a workaround for that. So here we're going to pass in the children, and then we're going to bring it here also. So now that we have this, we're going to wrap this around our dashboard, our authenticated route. So we have this layout file. So we're going to wrap it around this layout where before the children is passed, we're going to wrap it here. So we're going to call require auth. And we're going to move this inside of this. Gonna save it. So I think we're having an error. What's it saying? You're importing a component that needs use state. Okay. To use state, we must be in a client component. So we're going to add use client here. So that should have cleared the error. Yeah, done that. So that should have cleared the error. So this layout now, let's save it and see. We shouldn't have any error. There's no error there again. So what we're going to do right now is go back to our and try to access the dashboard. It should throw us back to the login page. So dashboard/home. So you can see that it's actually throwing us back to the login page, but we are still able to see the content of the dashboard briefly. I don't know if you saw that. You can see we saw the dashboard briefly before it threw us here. So there's a way we can work around that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a loader. So while it is still hydrating before loading the page, we are going to show the loader. So instead of showing the page, to show the loader first while it is still checking, and then if the check is successful, it will then show the page. So to do that, I'm going to put the loader in this library. You can put it anywhere. You can put it in your component folder. You can create a component folder, but I'll just put it here. I'll create a loading component, loading.js, and that is just going to contain a simple React component. You can see nothing much. We're using client here and simple components with loading. So that is how simple it is, and then we'll bring it into this authentication. So what we are going to do is, before we return the children here, the children prop, we want to do a check if no user, then we want to return the loading page. So I'm just going to format this, do a quick format. Good. So now what we are doing here is, if user doesn't exist, we are going to return the loading page while it is still checking. So by default this user is set to an empty object. So by default, the user does not exist by default until current user is verified, and then the set user sets the user. So let's go back and test the implementation and say dashboard. Oh, okay, I think I need to refresh this. And then do that again. Dashboard. Oh, I'm still seeing the dashboard. What's happening here? Just a minute, let me see what is really happening. Okay, I'm saying, let me say user.email there, and then this, I'm just making it there. If current user okay, I think that should do it. Okay, we don't need to have this div here. Let's have an empty brace. Then I'm gonna refresh this. Refresh this, and then dashboard. Oh, you can see it's no longer showing the dashboard. If you look closely, is showing the loading component. You see loading here, showing the loading component instead. Refresh that. Let me go to dashboard home again. You are seeing the loading component, not the dashboard page, and it's pushing us back to the login because the user doesn't exist. So the next thing we are going to do is to implement our login. So now we have our authenticated route. So you can always add to your authenticated route here. If you have more than one route, obviously you have more than one route, you can just add, you know, the route to your authenticated pages here, you know, and then make sure in the layout, you know, for those directory, you wrap it with the auth, the require auth wrapper. So so now we're going to our login page. We need to implement this login. So in this login, let me just explain what we have currently here. You know, this is a styled component has been implemented in this project already. So all these are styled components wrappers. So you can see this container here. It's just CSS. I'm styling a div here, you know, and then using it here. So you can use whatever library you want in your project, you know, for your CSS styling. So here we have a input, which is where we enter our emails and our password, and then the button. I'm using a ref to access the email and the password, which you see here. A use ref here. We have the router, and I'm going to change this router. I'm going to destructure the push out of it, and gonna leave that. Now I'm going to go to the next line, and then I'm going to, so you can do your validations here, whatever validation that you want to do with the email and the password. So for me, I'm just going to paste the simple validation. You know, you can use whatever form handling package you want, maybe Formic or whatever, but I'm just going to stick with the default form, and I'm going to make custom validation. So these are just custom validation. Check if the email is not empty. So I'm going to import this toast. This just gives us a notification. This toast here, Toastify. If you want me to do a tutorial on how to use that, I'll gladly do that. You can drop it in the comment section. And then here we are checking if it's an email. We are using regex. Yeah, this is a regex string. For those who don't know what this is, it checks that we have capital letter. No, it checks that it's a valid email, and then it is the password. This checks for the password, make sure it is not empty, and the length is not less than 7. Else it throws an error notification with this message and return false. So the submission would not continue. So after doing that, you create your response here. Const response is equals to await. This is going to be asynchronous function. So we're going to call the auth service here. Auth service dot login, and then we're going to pass in the email and the password. So here we'll check if we have a response. If we have a response, then okay, if no response, or remember that this auth service, does the error handling and a whole lot of other things. If you look at the login function here, we have here dot then, and then the dot catch here. So I think I need to return false here. Return false, just in case it fails. Return false. So if it doesn't fail, we return the response.data. So if we don't have a response here, you want to return here, return false. So I think I can just move this to a single line instead of multiple lines. And then the rest is going to be, we're going to have a toast.success that says login successful. And then we are going to, push the user to the dashboard /home. So we're having an error where we're having that module not found response. Okay, error handler. Okay, I think that is in our auth service. I think we implemented the error handler there. Okay, so I'm going to go to the root folder and create an util folder, utils. And inside the utils, I'm going to have a response handler, a error response handler, an error handler, so I'm just going to paste the code, so this is just a basic error handler that returns the message from the error. We pass in the error and it destructures the message depending on the status. So if it's 422, this is a validation error, so it extracts all the messages from this validation error. For example, if you are filling a form, and you have multiple validation error, what this does is it extracts all the messages and returns them. So as a string returns the messages, so you can notify the user. So else, if it's not a validation error, it also extracts and does that also by extracting the message. So I'm just restructuring the message here depending on the original error message. For example, this is a network error. Whenever you see a network error, it probably means you're not connected to the internet or something like that, or the backend is down, but most times you're not connected to the internet. When you see an invalid signature, it usually means the link has expired. For example, if you ask a user to confirm their email and you send a link to them, so if the link has expired and they try to click on the link, they will get an invalid signature error from the JWT in the backend. So I'm just restructuring that to seems like the link has expired. So that's just it here. So I think we are all done. We are all good now. So let's go to our front end. Let's refresh this. Okay. I think we are okay. Then I'm going to log in. So if I log in here, I should get see the access and the refresh token, stored in the cookie. So let me try to log in. You can see, and then you can see it redirecting me to dashboard home. But there's something wrong. It's stuck in the loading. I think I know what is wrong. So what I'm going to do is this decoded user, get current user. Yeah, I'm going to console log the decoded console.log decoded. No, I just need it decoded, not JSON. Decoded. So I'm just going to go back and log in again. Dashboard. This error, I think, is because of the styled component. Style components usually add extra attributes. So what are we having here? Let me see. I'm going to go to the auth here, and then I'm going to console log the current user. I think I know where the problem is. Console dot log current user. Let's just leave that. So it's returning to me the token instead of the user. Okay, let's see why that is happening. Get user here. Oh, I see. So it shouldn't be get user. We should be calling let me see. This should be oh sorry. It should be auth service, not token. Auth service dot get current user. Yeah. No wonder. I see. So now we don't need this email here. Let me go back here. You can see now we are inside. You can see the decoded user here. So now we are inside. You can see the dashboard, and if I delete the refresh token here and load this, it logs us out. If I try to access the dashboard, I can't access it. It shows me the loading and then redirects me loading, while it is validating and checking if I'm allowed to. If I'm actually logged in, it shows the loading and then pushes me back to the login page. But if I log in now, I have the refresh token, the access token, and I'm redirected straight to the dashboard. So this way you can protect your protected route. And also for those of you who probably keep wondering about this error, you can fix this error. It's something you can fix. I think with your ESLint, your Babel configuration, you can use to fix this error. But because this tutorial is not about styled components, I won't be sharing how to do that. You can always Google it and see how to do that if you need it. So that is that about that. So now let's just clean up this code a little bit. We don't need this again. You can still have it as user and it will still work. You can see it still work. These are usually Next.js keeps throwing this error once in a while, I think, because of the fast refresh. But in production, you don't get the error. You can see we have it. But once I delete the cookie and I refresh, it logs me out. Let me try to access it while logged out. I wouldn't. Why is it still showing me? Oh, I think we actually need this, because this is still an object here. So user automatically exists unless we are checking, for a value inside the user, which doesn't exist at initialization. So this should fix it. So you actually need this. Let me refresh this. And then dashboard home. You can see I didn't see the dashboard, just the login. Dashboard on, you see the login and then it will push you out. When I log in, I get the access refresh and the access token, which will automatically be deleted once they are expired. To be deleted out of this place, so that you won't have access to it, so it automatically logs you out. Let me demonstrate that. I'm just going to go to the backend that I use and change the expiry time. Let me change it to maybe 10 seconds. So let me bring the backend. I think this is the backend. Let me just bring it here so that we can see. You can see the access token TTL. So I'm going to change this to 10 seconds and save that. Restart the server. I don't know if S should be second. Yeah, so I'm gonna delete this so that I get a new token. I'm going to log in. It's going to give me a new token, so I'm going to wait 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let me refresh this. You can see the access token has gone. So if I reload this, it will log me out. I've not implemented the route for the refresh token. If not, it ought, if I try to access the API, it will request for another access token and with the refresh token. But I haven't implemented the route for the refresh for the session to refresh the session. So that brings us to the end of today's tutorial. Thank you for watching. See you some other time.